We're going to look now at the type of essay questions you can expect to see when you go into an exam situation. So before we do that, I want to give you a couple of tips. And we have done this before, I know. But remember that the introduction to your essay must catch your reader's attention. It must define the topic and briefly tell the reader what the essay will be addressing. In this way, your reader has an idea of what to expect going forward. We then have the body of the essay. Now, the body of the essay comprises the full content of what you are trying to talk about or what you are writing about. So the body must be divided into paragraphs, each of which must pursue a specific idea right way through to the end. And the writer must address all the ideas that they wanted to address, keeping to this topic. So you can have an essay with one extra paragraph, you can have two, you can have three, you can have four, but each paragraph has its own content and its own point to reinforce your thoughts and what you are writing about. And then finally, we get to the conclusion. Now, the conclusion is the ending. It's the rounding off. It's pulling all the pieces together and making it clear and coming to a definitive end. Now, this ties up all the loose pieces, and as this is the end, you do not bring any new information into your essay at this point. So now we know we've got a starter to tease people, get them thinking. We've got the body of the essay made up of paragraphs, and then we have the concluding paragraph, which ties everything and brings it together. Just as with any other question in an exam, you need to read the questions about essays very carefully so that you know which style of essay you will be writing. So you need to be able to understand, is it a narrative? Is it descriptive? Is it expository? Is it argumentative? Or is it discursive? But that'll be determined by the subject matter. Now, usually in an exam situation, you will be given either a paragraph or some kind of statement, and you'll be asked to speak about that. But once again, read it carefully, because you could be asked to write a narrative essay without the question saying, write a narrative essay. An example would be the heading, "The best story my grandfather ever told me." Now, when you read that, you know that you're going to be telling a story because of the word story in the title. But it also means that you are going to be relating what has happened. So there's the narrative. How about another title under narrative? "We were having a great time when all of a sudden, ... Now immediately you can see that something happened. You were having a good time and then something happened. This is your point to tell the story of what happened. Descriptive essays usually have the word describe in them. For example, describe a stormy night at sea. Now you would have to be able to put yourself into the position of being at sea. We know from descriptive essays that you're going to be using lots and lots of adjectives. Another essay topic could be a day on the beach. Those of us that live in the coast have all been down to the beach. So we know what to expect: the sand, the sound of the waves, the wind blowing. So you use all the adjectives you can to write a story or write a description of what it's like down at the beach. Expository can be very, very different. Discuss how you would collect funds for a year-end party. Now, writing an essay like that means that you're going to have to do a little bit more research than just pulling it out of your head. Because now you're going to have to find ways in order to generate money. And you know what's going to make your essay even better? Is if you come up with something completely unique. Try and think of something different. Try and think of something completely unheard of or unwritten before. Remember, your teachers have been doing this for years, and they have probably read most of the ideas that you're going to come up with from previous learners. But if you come up with something new about how to raise money, it makes your expository essay just that much more interesting. How about this one for an expository? You're given the heading, more than 1,000 people are killed on South African roads every December holiday period. How can this be stopped? Now, in this example, it is expository, it's explaining everything, but you are going to have to do a bit more research to find actual figures. You're going to have to look at people who are able to come up with new ideas to reduce the accident rate. It'll make for an interesting discussion and certainly an interesting essay if you get one like that. Then we have the argumentative essay. Now, this one is where I really enjoy, because it now allows you to be emotive. Your own emotions, your feelings, your opinions matter in this style. And in an argumentative essay, you could get something like, television kills creativity. Do you agree? Wow. Does television kill creativity? Yes or no? Yes, it does, because 1, 2, 3. No, it doesn't, because 1, 2, 3. And so you put your essay together, and it's all your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions. You still have to go back and do a little bit of research, though. But it's something that you strongly believe in. How about another argumentative one? And this one's always my favorite. The works of William Shakespeare are as relevant in South Africa today as they were in Europe in the 1600s. Do you agree? Now, I know this is going to cause a lot of controversy. A lot of people are going to say, yes, Shakespeare's magnificent and we need his work. And some of you are going to say, no, we need to get rid of Shakespeare. He's not relevant for South Africa in the 21st century. Discursive essays place you in a very difficult position as a writer or as the person giving the opinion. Because in a discursive essay, you have to see both sides of a story, both sides of an opinion. I'll give you an example of a discursive essay question. Write an essay in which you give arguments for and against the opening of South Africa's borders to the rest of the African continent. Now, that immediately means you're going to have to do a bit of research before you start writing this. Because what are the advantages of having us closed off and having South Africa's borders closed? What are the advantages of opening the borders? What are the advantages of keeping everybody away? And so on. Does it work to have everybody from Africa free-flowing into South Africa and vice versa? Those are the kind of questions you're going to have to research and look at. And it's called a discussion because you're showing both sides of the argument. A more appropriate one in this time. Our government has done a good job during the COVID-19 lockdown period. Discuss the positives and the negatives of this statement. So immediately, how you feel about being in a state of lockdown, how you feel about not being able to go to school, not being able to go to the beach, whether it's beneficial to sacrifice for a short period of time, or whether we should just go out there and enjoy our civil liberties as we always have. What are the advantages and disadvantages of both? So you can see that by looking at the question carefully, looking at the topic you've been given, you will be able to understand what kind of essay you are meant to write. Now here comes an interesting bit. Usually essay writing comes under language section of your paper, or it's a language section of your English curriculum. But, and here's a big but, essay writing is not only a part of the mechanics of the language, but it also comes into literature. Whenever we study any kind of literature, there are questions around that to check your understanding. And a lot of those questions will evoke emotions. So one of the questions that could come up is The Zulu Girl as a poem. It's a beautiful poem by Roy Campbell. A question could be, explore how the poet uses tone in The Zulu Girl. Note how and where it changes over the course of the poem, and quote from the poem to give substance to your response. Another question based on literature could be something about Macbeth. The witch's chant of fair is foul and foul is fair is central to one of the major themes of the play of Macbeth. Name this theme and explore the concept as it is used throughout the play. So in the first question about the poem, they're asking you to look at and to analyze and present. In the second question about the witches from Macbeth, you can see that you're going into a discursive essay because you're going to be looking at how fair is foul and foul is fair has impacted in the entire duration of the play. What I'd like to do with you now is go through the questions based on the literature, because that will give a good example of how we extract information in order to write an essay. So the first question was, explore how the poet uses the tone in the poem A Zulu Girl. Note how and where it changes over the course of the poem, and quote from the poem to give substance to your response. So now you will have a copy of Roy Campbell's The Zulu Girl with you. You read through it and you'll start to recognize and feel things. So we can see by looking at that the opening stanza is sympathetic towards the woman and exposes the harsh conditions where she's working. For example, the sweating gang in line 2. Likewise, her child is tormented by flies. So in the first stanza, immediately you feel compassion, you feel sympathetic, you feel a kind of bond with the lead person in the poem, which is the Zulu girl. In the second stanza, the mother is shown as being loving and nurturing as she sits down and takes her baby and the baby suckles on her breast. And so much so, there's a sense of, oh, cute to those lines, because it talks about the baby sucking like a puppy. And immediately everyone thinks, oh, that's so nice, the way she's looking after him. However, the use of the word yet in line 13 alerts us to a shift in tone. Words like curbed ferocity and beaten tribes immediately raises in our mind something of anger, something of aggression. So we can see that by the fourth stanza there's been a shift in tone. So much so that we know that there's a confrontation coming as it talks about looming over her child. And we know that that looming is ominous and oppressive. Something is about to happen. We need to learn to live with the COVID virus, you know, the new normal, at least for the next few months. And we have just what you need to make sure you never miss a single school lesson. And it's absolutely free, mahala! High quality, powerful, animated lessons for all your subjects. So don't spend a cent until you have tried iWiz. It's everything you need. All video lessons, textbooks, workbooks, exam prep. We want you to ace 2021.